Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Josey. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Josey. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Josey, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have two guests who will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is my top 5 tips for launching a short-term rental. Short-term rentals are one of the fastest ways for new investors to generate serious cash flow, but only if you launch with intention. There's more to it than throwing some furniture in a room and hoping for bookings. Want to set yourself up for 5-star reviews and repeat guests? Here are 5 ways to stand out from the crowd. Number 1, know your local laws and HOA rules. Before you buy or list anything, dig deep into your city's short-term rental regulations and any HOA restrictions. The last thing you want is a cease and desist letter after you've invested your time and money. Knowledge is your first line of defense. Number 2, design for Instagram, but clean for grandma. Your place needs to pop in the photos, but also be spotless for every guest. Invest in a few eye-catching design touches. Think bold accent walls or quirky local art, and hire a professional cleaner who treats your property like their own. Number 3, automate the guest experience. Smart locks, digital guidebooks, and automated messaging can save you hours and make your guests feel taken care of. The smoother the process, the better your reviews and the less you'll be glued to your phone. Number 4, price like a pro, not a rookie. Don't just copy your neighbor's rates. Use a third-party dynamic pricing tool to adjust for demand, seasons, and special events. Monitor your competition and tweak your rates regularly to maximize your profits. Number 5, deliver a wow welcome. Small touches go a long way. A welcome basket, a handwritten note, or a local snack can turn a good stay into a memorable one. Happy guests equals glowing reviews and more bookings. So RAIN Nation, remember, launching a short-term rental isn't just about making money, it's about creating memorable experiences that keep guests coming back for more. Nail these 5 tips and you'll be well on your way to short-term rental badassery. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us a powerhouse duo from Prudent Wealth Strategies. First up, we have Stefan Belhomme, founder of Prudent Wealth Strategies. Stefan is a registered tax planner and certified tax, trust, and estate specialist who, since 2006, has helped countless business owners and investors unlock advanced tax strategies and protect their assets so they can keep more of what they earn. Joining him is my new friend, Michelle Nice, an advanced tax consultant and trust funding specialist at Prudent Wealth Strategies, as well as a licensed insurance broker. Having grown up as the daughter of a small business owner, Michelle knows firsthand the importance of maximizing efficiency and listening to the unique needs of each client. Together, Stefan and Michelle bring a wealth of experience and real-world stories to help new investors navigate the complex world of tax efficiency, asset protection, and building generational wealth. It's my pleasure to have them on the show, so welcome, Stefan and Michelle. Hello. It is early, and yet I am so thrilled to have you both on the show. And Michelle, I just got to say, I met you at a recent event that I spoke at, and you and I have just way too much in common. And so we need to hang out a little bit more. I'm just planting that seed before we get started here. So thank you all.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, we were former teachers. We both lived, all three of us used to live in Florida, but again, they can keep Florida. I don't need to move back there. But we are, exactly. But we are diving into the world of tax efficiency and asset protection today, which for many of my listeners can seem overwhelming. So I am going to start with your why. What inspired you both to focus on educating investors about tax efficiency and protecting their assets?
Right. No, yeah, I mean, listen, I came out of college. I was, in the insurance business. I started making, good money. You're in sales, and it's like, great, I'm starting to make money. And then you realize the more you make, the more they take. And there's only so much, you can do with deductions. Hey, I'm writing off this, I'm doing that. And by the way, my dad's an accountant. He's been an accountant for, over 30 years. And he pretty much does what TurboTax does now. So there wasn't a whole lot that he could offer me. So it's like, crap, I'm kind of disincentivized to work harder, right? You're taught to work harder, put your effort in, make a lot of money, but the more you make, the less you actually get to keep. So it was really a personal journey for me to start figuring out what I could actually do. You hear all these stories, wealthy people don't pay a lot of taxes, this and that, and but it's like, how do you actually put that into practice, right? It's one thing to hear about it, it's how do you actually put it in your own life. So for me, it was just a learning journey of figuring out how to kind of help myself. And then from that point, I was like, wow, there's just a whole new world. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. And most business owners, investors, they don't realize this. And so it kind of morphed into, what we do now, which is help, investors and business owners all over the country.
Huge. Yeah. And I just want to add to this as well, because like I just sponsored a trip to Iceland with some RAIN members, and it's a tax write-off. We were doing business out there. I have some connections now that I'm working with today that I met while in Iceland. So learning these things I think are so very important. And Michelle, I'm so sorry I cut you off. What were you going to add? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so we kind of learned from our own mistakes and found out there had to be a better way. We had a very successful business in South Florida, generated a lot of income, a lot of money, and paid a lot in tax. And we were doing the strategies that everybody else was told to do. Buy a vehicle, do this, things that didn't really add up and make sense. And we spent so much money. It's not what you make, it's how much can you keep.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your rate of return. It's like, what do you get to keep at the end of the day? So we knew there had to be a better way. And we researched it, we found it, we applied it for our own business, our own family, and we are so excited about it because a lot of these structures and these strategies are for the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% that the ultra wealthy use, but actually pretty much everybody in business, when you're at a certain level, can utilize these strategies and structures and benefit from them. And so we've been there, done it. We not only talk the talk, we walk the walk.
Very good. Do you focus mainly on real estate investors, or are you open to working with all different types of businesses?
All types.
Yeah,
Okay.
all businesses, entrepreneurs, anyone that's got a, significant amount of income coming in from a business, or they're selling something, they're selling an investment, they're selling crypto, whatever. There's a way and a strategy to help them be more efficient. That's really what it's about.
Interesting.
And final question is, do you love the government more than your family? And if you don't love the government more than your family, there's a better way. And
I don't love much of the government at all these days.
That's a whole other story.
That's a whole nother podcast. That's like a 3-hour podcast. All right. So I'm going to address this to Michelle. So for new investors listening, because you mentioned you've been there, you've done it, you've made the mistakes yourself. So why should they care about structuring things the right way from the start?
Because you get to keep more. You want to get set up. It's kind of like anything. Like, you don't want to learn something with bad habits. like pickleball's all the rage. You don't want to learn the bad habits because then you have to relearn. It's harder to relearn the right way. So if you start from the get-go, on the correct path in the most efficient way possible, you're the one that's going to benefit. So it's like, how much do you want to benefit? Do you want to benefit a little bit or a lot of it? How much do you want to look back and regret and say, oh my gosh, tens of thousands of dollars, time value and money and
Time value of money.
time value of money, compounding interest I missed out, like all these things. So start the right way.
Yeah, the second part of my question there was what's at stake if they get it wrong, and you answer that, and I like how you two answer each other's sentences there. That's very cute. Because you two are married as well, right?
Yes, that's
Yes,
right.
partners, and I'm married to my business partner too. I actually have a whole presentation on sleeping with my business partner.
Oh, wow. All right. Partners in-
All right, so I want to go now into asset protection. It's one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot, but in your experience, what's the biggest myth or misconception that new investors have about asset protection?
I would say there's a lot of myths. The biggest one is, I think, what does asset protection actually mean, right? For a lot
Yes.
of people, it's just, hey, making sure I have the right structure, LLCs, you know, trust, all that stuff. But it's a lot more than that because what happened, and a lot of people just think about if I get sued, right?
Right.
Which can happen, and there's that risk. But what about if something happens to you, God forbid you get in a car accident or you're severely ill, you get, Alzheimer's or cancer or stroke. Now you have huge medical bills. Like asset protection is more than just the structure that you have. It's about having the right legal documentations. It's about having a plan in place when those events happen. If you have kids, making sure you have guardianship because otherwise the default, everyone has a plan. And the default plan for everyone's plan is they don't have a plan, it's the government's plan. No one wants that. But
Nope.
if you don't have the right things in place, it's a disaster for your family and all the hard work and everything that you put into it's going to be for naught. So it's super important to be proactive.
On that same topic, what's a quick and dirty example of a minimum structure you should have for your business?
Yeah. Everybody should at a minimum have a healthcare and financial power of attorney
Oh,
at all
okay.
times. Yeah, especially for business owners, because God forbid, again, forget about getting sued. If something happens to you, you're incapacitated, you're in an accident. We just had a big thing in this neighborhood. Someone in our neighborhood, got in a boat accident, and it ended up killing somebody. Well, and someone else was incapacitated. Well, when that happens, guess what? No one can advocate for you. Hey, they need to go to the bank to take out money to pay for this. They can't do that. Even if you're married, if your spouse does not have, let's say you have a bank account, you're not a joint owner. If your spouse doesn't have a financial power of attorney to do stuff, they can't, the banks won't talk to them, the insurance companies won't talk to
Mm,
you. So at a minimum, having those two things in place, living will, which is, more advanced, God forbid, you got, a few weeks to live, a month to live. Hey, do you pull the plug? Do you not pull the plug? Do we like all of these things are so important to have because we have to plan for the worst, right?
gotcha.
Um, expect the best, but reality is somewhere in the middle.
And that's huge. And most people don't ever even think about that. But to go back to my question a little bit more broader, I'm
Yeah,
talking about structuring your business. What's the best way to, just a quick, dirty example
yeah,
of how you should structure your LLCs for
yeah.
the best way to protect yourself from getting sued? That's kind of where I was going with that. But I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, no. And so in LLCs, I think the big myth is that LLCs have the ultimate asset protection. Once you have an LLC, you're good to go. And that's the most the biggest myth out there. And a lot of people now, especially if you go on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you have these guys saying, hey, get one in Nevada or Wyoming or this or that. An LLC is literally a large lawsuit coming. That's what we call it. LLC, large lawsuit coming. Because people only sue people that have money and have assets and have businesses, right? And so if you have an LLC, it's a public entity, it's exposed. It is on the Secretary of State. People can see it. So it's not having an LLC. An LLC can give you asset protection if you manage it right. Most people, most business owners, people in real estate, they're just lazy. They don't do books. They don't do, have a bank account. They don't, go by the articles in their LLC. There's all these different things to make sure that your LLC is an actual entity in the eyes of the government so that you have protection. But beyond that, yeah, definitely understanding how to use trusts to basically really protect your assets is super, super important.
Good. Michelle, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, LLC, stands for limited
Mhm.
liability company.
Good.
Limited. You have limited liability, and a lot of them are single member disregarded. So it's really, if somebody were to sue you and you only had an LLC and you're a single member of that LLC, it's really you. Okay, it's really your personal estate. So there's only like one little level of shielding. It's not ironclad asset protection. So is it good to have an LLC? Yes, a lot of times it's good to have an LLC, but you want to also have a trust structure and the right trust structure set up working in unison with that LLC. So there are ways to do that, and that's what we help clients with so that they can be as efficient as possible and have that asset protection. And another thing is if you don't, you are so exposed. You are just so exposed. So I just want to give an example. I was driving home from a real estate investment association meeting last year, and I lived in Pinehurst at the time. I lived an hour and a half away. The meeting was up in Raleigh, lived an hour and a half away in Pinehurst. It was a rainy night. It was the end of the summer. It was like steam was coming off the road. It was a country road. And I'm driving really slow because there's a lot of deer on the way home. So I'm always looking for the deer eyes on the side of the road. And I see this little beady, like red eye thing. And I'm like, oh, it's a deer. I'm going really, really slow. Well, here it is, a guy with a wand. It's a red flashing wand. He has no vest on. I could have run him over very easily. And about half a mile up the road was like a big, like double wide. They were like moving a half of like a mobile home or something down the road, okay? And he was trying to like stop traffic on the one side. It was very, very, very poor visibility. And if I would have killed that guy, by accident, and we weren't protected, the business, the home, that all the assets that we've, worked really hard to build, sacrificed as entrepreneurs, ups and downs in the early days, it could have been gone like that,
Wow.
like that, because they don't sue you for whatever your insurance is or whatever. They sue you for the
Human life.
human life value.
Ugh.
What's the human life value of that gentleman? Like, what is his like lifetime income? Who does he have to take care of? This is when you see those ads for those
Yeah,
lawyers. Like, what
yeah.
is it? What do they say? Those ads.
Morgan and Morgan, and looks like, we got
What?
$50 million from the, yeah, that's where that comes from.
Yeah,
It's
but
because when you kill someone, even if it's an accident, so what? You killed that person. They're gonna sue you for a lot more than what your insurance
same
covers,
same thing.
if
If
it
you
even covers it.
Same thing, like our daughter's learning how to drive. We're gonna let her loose soon on the road. Oh my gosh. Right? If she hits or hurts or does something, we're exposed. All these parents are exposed. If they don't, if they have something to protect, forget about it.
Wow.
So yeah.
Goodness. Thank you for sharing that story. So, I work for a national coaching program. I'm one of the coaches just because I don't want to have my own coaching program. So, I coach for others because I love the ability to coach people. But in there, we promote people to we work with a company that promotes them to be incorporated in Nevada. Can you explain what the heck that means?
Yeah. So Nevada, so there are different statutory, different states have different laws when it comes to businesses, and some are a little bit more business friendly, meaning that the state courts and whatnot, when litigations and lawsuits and things of that nature happen, it's not like they're not taking the side of the individual or ordinary people, but they're a little bit more business friendly. So Nevada is one of those states. Delaware is another one. Wyoming There's some nuances there. But yeah, a lot of people recommend getting entities in certain states that are more business friendly, just because if something happens and your entity gets sued, well, the lawsuit for the most part is going to happen in that state. Now, when it comes to real estate, it's a completely different thing because real estate is statutory. So even if I have my real estate in North Carolina, if it's owned by a Nevada LLC or incorporation, the court's happening in North Carolina or Texas or wherever my state is. So that's where there's a lot of nuances, and some of the courts, they're not going to respect the entity, and sometimes they may even look at it even worse if you're not doing the right things because they think you're trying to get away with murder. So
I am glad you brought that up. So we have multiple LLCs just to kind of spread things out because that's what we were instructed by our coaches getting into this business. But what is the importance of spreading out your businesses in separate LLCs?
yeah. So if you have a lot of business risk, right? You have a lot of different business entities and ventures and things that you're doing. It's just like asset diversification with investing, right? Hey, I'm not going to put everything in Coca-Cola. I'm going to have some over an Apple or a Nike or whatever. So when as your portfolio of investments and business ventures grows, it is a smart deal to, have entities spread out so that if something happens to one entity, the other one isn't affected.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that. I figured it was that much. And there's also like, you can only have 10 mortgages in an LLC and then you have to make a new one and things like that. We don't even need to go down that rabbit hole, but this is just so very important because people are buying rental properties in their own name and they aren't
Mhm.
protecting themselves where they should be buying it through an LLC. So speaking of ownership, what's the difference between ownership versus control? Most people think if they own something, they control it. But you say the game is a little different. Can you explain that and maybe give I love Michelle's world life examples here. So real life examples.
So
So yeah.
own nothing, control everything.
Okay.
That is the mantra of Rockefeller, a very, very, very successful family in this country. We have been fed propaganda basically to benefit the government. The government always wins. We have been fed to have pride of ownership. Put it in your name. I've paid cash. I own it all. Well, great. Now you don't have any use of that cash, right? That cash is tied up in that property or whatever. When you own it, you are liable for it when it's in your name. So, if you put your properties, your investments in another entity, you title them to another entity that is not you, then you don't own anything. But you put yourself in a position for that entity where you control it, then you're being efficient and you're having protection. You have protection. So
Huge.
it's just an opposite. Whatever the government has taught us, whatever we've been fed, just do the opposite. Just flip it. Because guess what? They're doing it. The congressmen and women that write these laws into the Internal Revenue Code, the IRC, they write it for a reason and they do it, but they make it so convoluted and so difficult for the little man to understand. It's hard to get the correct information. So it's very confusing for a lot of investors. A lot of investors are told, oh, get a land trust or go do the. It's very confusing. Get an LLC, take the S Corp election. Like all these things that we're taught are really to benefit the government. So we've researched it, we utilize it, and we flip it on its head, and we educate other people on how to be efficient and protect it as well.
And it's so important because I do not even pretend to know much about it at all. When I have students asking me, I'm like, you got to go to the expert. So I love that you're there to educate your clients as well, which is so very important. So I want to now kind of shift a little bit towards building generational wealth. So that's a huge goal for a lot of investors. So what structure should people be thinking about now if they want to set up for their family in the long haul?
Yeah. Well, definitely having a trust is super important because, and well, I'll get into kind of how most people think about trust because most people just think about it from hey, when I'm dead and gone, that's it. But
Right.
you can actually benefit from trust while you're alive, and that's one of the things that we educate people about. But if you're concerned about generational wealth, if that's a priority for you, then you need to have a trust, not an LLC or a corporation, because everything at the end, when you're no longer here, is going to go through probate, which is
Right.
basically money, stress, courts, lawyers, judges, time. It's a mess.
Yep.
So having a trust to make sure that everything that you work so hard for, again, doesn't go through the government default plan, right, is just a smart thing to do. And you don't have to be a gazillionaire to set up a trust. A lot of people think, oh, it's only for the billionaires and multimillionaires. I just need a will. No, a will send you straight to the probate court. So you want to have a trust.
Yes, I know firsthand. My mother passed away last year and went through probate, and I went, because I have a trust. And I'm like, why did we not do a trust? So yes, I do know firsthand. And the trust, when we set it up, and this is before I met you all, sorry, but the trust felt it was draining to go through all that. Where's every single one of our assets going, and who's going to be in control and doing all that? And it is writing a will, basically, just of where you want your things to go. But can your LLCs be in that trust?
Yes, if you have an active LLC, because here's the thing, what most people don't realize, the LLC, it's part of your personal estate. So your LLC will go through probate, your corporations will go through probate. So if you have an active business, if you're doing real estate, if you have rental properties, whatever, you're operating it through an LLC, at a minimum, yes. Number one, get a trust. Number two, make sure that LLC is actually in your trust, because a lot of people will just pay thousands of dollars, get a trust, and they don't actually fund it. They don't actually put the assets in, which is all for naught because everything's going to go through probate.
So, hypothetical question here. We have our trust and we are asset rich,
Mhm.
cash poor right now, like many real estate investors at the moment. If my husband and I were to die in a car accident, and then everything is going to be dispersed through our trust, how does that work so that our heirs, I don't want them to have all these bills and everything. Like, how would they go through with the assets and make that work financially for them?
Yeah. So, and this is where funding the trust and understanding all that stuff is super important, because essentially what happens is when you've properly funded your trust, you put everything in the trust. Once someone passes away, right? You go through the whole rigmarole. You get the death certificate, right? That death certificate is going to prove and show that you've passed away, right? And all of the financial institutions, the banks, the local property assessor, you would just show them that, hey, this person's passed away. This is the trust document. This is everything that we plan put into place. You have everything recorded. Again, that's the funding part. And so now it'll transition over seamlessly to those beneficiaries in the trust. So if it's done right, it's a pretty simple process. The issue with most people, and this is part of what we do in our planning, is all of these different little holes that are happening. Because, for example, you have a trust, you funded it, you did everything. You got to wait on the death certificate, right? And that could take a few weeks. It could take maybe as long as a month. And so there's, a lot of assets that people have, money in the bank here and there, but it's all frozen once that person passes away, and there's no immediate liquidity. So it's also important that they have liquidity provisions so that, hey, once that person passes away, they have access to some of the cash to cover, some immediate bills and things like that until they get the death certificate, the life insurance policies kicking, and that can take time. It's not immediately right after someone passes away that things transition. And most people just don't realize that because they've never been through it.
Yeah. So we do assist clients with that as well, with liquidity provisions to have that set up and let the heirs know this is what you're going to do. This is how you do it. And we walk them through, we hold their hand. We also help the clients make sure their trusts are funded properly. Sometimes the trusts are not funded properly. And there are different classes of trusts. So what type of trust do you need? It's not a one size fits all for everybody. So we also help and educate, our clients with that.
So if are they taking on, like, are they assets being sold off, or are they taking it over as a business? Like, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
Because clearly
Yeah.
I was not educated on this.
Yeah,
So.
and that's why all of this is so important. The education piece is so important, because when you go to an attorney, they just want to sell your trust, right? They're not really there to educate you. Hey, give me five, six, seven, eight, nine, $10,000,
Plus,
and hey, anytime you need to speak to me, we're gonna charge you $500 an hour or whatever, and then that's it. And so the education piece is super important. But essentially, and this is part of, like to Michelle's point, the difference between what kind of trust is going to work for you, because 90%, 99% of people out there, they have what's called a revocable trust or a living trust. It's what's called an inter vivos trust. It's a trust that you set up while you're alive. And you put your assets into trust and you set up a successor trustee, whether it's your kids or your cousin or whatever. And that person's job is to distribute the assets to the beneficiaries.
Gotcha.
So the LLCs, the businesses, the bank accounts, they distribute it to them. Once they distribute it, now it's in their personal name. So it's out of the trust, no protection, and they are subject to lawsuits and liabilities and taxes. So smart trust planning is super important for generational wealth.
Thank you for dumbing that down for me, because I'm just following the advice of coaches in the past who have told me put everything in a trust and do this. And I've never even thought about what's going to happen after the fact. So thank you, Stefan, for that. So Michelle, you work a lot with families and business owners. So what's one piece of advice that you wish everyone understood about planning for the future?
planning for the future is so important. A lot of business owners are just so tied up with the task at hand, but you want to have your exit strategy also in your purview. What are you going to do, when you're going to come down the mountain? How are you going to execute that? What is your plan of action? What is the most efficient way to do that? So you really want to talk and have a good conversation with those business owners and ask them questions to help them get all of those plans in alignment for them, because that's a big part of business. Okay. It's not just going up the mountain. It's how are you going to come down the mountain and keep what you work so hard, more of what you so hard, to earn. So exit strategy is something that I always like to bring up, and actually to find out what are their wishes. What do they want to happen? Do they want a successor heir to take over the business and run? Do they want to sell it off? What are their personal goals and plans for, how long do they want to work for? What kind of income do they want when they retire? Do they want a lump sum of everything? Do they want to maybe annuitize some of that? Like, it just depends. So I ask a lot of questions, do a really good thorough intake, and to find out what their goals are and what are the goals for their children. Do they want their children or their heirs to inherit things all at one time? What if something happens to them and their children are young, maybe a young adult or a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old? Do they want them to get it all? Or do they want to have it where there's maybe some type of spendthrift provisions or some type of time allotment and ages and stages where their heirs get, so that it's not all just dissolved, like that. Oh my gosh, Johnny's like, 19 and he wants the red sports car, and then he wants the yellow sports car, and then he wants he's going to have a rainbow of sports car. You know what I mean? So I ask a lot of planning type questions like that.
I think that's huge, because I was raised, you don't ever talk about money at the dinner table. And so this is, I can't imagine. And like I just said, my mother passed away last year. We didn't have conversations like this, and it fell into the probate situation. We had to go through all the rigmarole for all that. So I think that is such a blessing you are providing to small business owners, to families for their future, because that's just such a huge aspect of it. I work with students, like I said, and I ask them their why all the time. And 90% of them, I want to leave a legacy for my family. But here's the thing. They don't know what that legacy looks like. And they need people like you in their corner to show them how to set it up for them. Maybe the sports car kid doesn't even want to run the business, and they need to have that open conversation with them. Maybe they don't care anything about real estate. They don't want the headaches of, they see dad out there plunging the toilet for the old lady tenant that they have down the street, and they don't want to get in that mess. So I love that you are having these conversations with them, and I just think that's such a valuable aspect of this business. So thank you both for that.
Yeah.
All right. So one of my last questions here is, you've helped a lot of people navigate these complex topics, as I just said, but Do you have any story that maybe stands out where like maybe one small change made a huge impact to a small business owner?
Want to take that?
Yeah. So we've had a like I could say one big story is a client of mine who we've had her for years, and she's a small business owner. She's out in Texas, and basically, we started helping her on the college side because one of the things we do with our strategies when we're able to help you, shelter your income and assets, reduce your taxes, now you can qualify for more financial aid from some of these very expensive colleges. So that's kind of how we met her. And it morphed into, a lot of different things that we did, and we helped set up a trust. And what ended up happening is her daughter ended up having a condition, a medical condition that basically rendered her disabled. It was like a degenerative thing. She's still alive, thank God, but she's not in the same shape. And she ended up she was a swimmer. She was on the swim team, and she ended up not being able to swim in college like she wanted to. But because of what we did and all the strategies and structures we set up for her, one of the things was a trust, and this trust was able to basically, mom's working making money, dad's working making money, they're getting killed with taxes. We're able to save them a whole bunch of money in taxes. And now, the daughter needs medical care and all these different things. We're able to use the money in the trust to pay for that right now while she's alive on a pre-tax basis. And it was just such a great um, reminder of kind of what we do. And the daughter ended up playing in the Paralympics to kind of get the care and, things that she needed from medical providers. So it was something that, we didn't plan out. Obviously, no one foresaw, but they're in a much more better shape than they were before just because of how we set them up.
What a rewarding experience that must be for you all as well to have provided that. So, thank you for sharing that. And my last question before we go to the second part of the podcast here is people listening may feel very overwhelmed and maybe they're like, oh goodness, I own two rentals in my own name. I don't have anything set up. What should be their very first step besides calling you all? But what should be their very first step?
Yeah, I would say the first step is, hey, you got properties. I mean, that's a good job. You did a good job, right? You're in a position that a lot of people aren't in.
Yes.
Um, but I think the first thing is to, number one, I would say get educated, really educated on the laws in your state, because every state is different when it comes to LLCs. So if you're in Virginia, if you're in Florida, if you're in Texas, North Carolina, really research what your state laws are when it comes to entities, number one. And number two, take the time to figure out, again, like Michelle was saying, what the long-term goal is. Hey, yes, you got this rental property, but you have to think of it, if something happened tomorrow to you, what would you want to have happen? And if you can think with the end in mind, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of people just they don't begin with the end in mind. It's just, hey, what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow. They don't really think about the worst case scenario, but we got to kind of really plan for that. It's going to change. You're actually gonna live more freely. A lot of people don't like to have these
Second
conversations,
part.
talk about death and things like that because it's just
It's
so
hard.
overwhelming. But when you actually put the plan in place, I got it done.
Yes.
I don't have to worry about it.
Absolutely. So, do you work with people in all across the country?
Yep,
Yes.
all
Okay.
50 states.
Mhm.
So, how do they get in touch with you to help educate them and navigate them in the right direction to protect their assets? And we didn't even get a lot into the whole tax, thing, like keeping more money in your pocket. But how do they reach out to you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so we have a YouTube channel called the Tax and Estate Academy. We provide a lot of content on there, educational content for business owners, for investors to really kind of understand this. And then if they want to, kind of learn more, we have a program called T, the Tax and Estate Academy. We have T, and we talk about different strategies. So we have a whole team of forensic CPAs, tax attorneys, estate planning attorneys, enrolled agents, which is what I am through the IRS, and we talk really in depth about certain things. You can ask your questions and really get not just a surface level, but a more in-depth level understanding of how these things work based off your particular situation. Because Everyone's situation is different. And a lot of times when you look at stuff on Reddit or YouTube or this or that or Instagram, people think, oh, well, I'm going to do that. No, they don't know about your situation. They're just trying to sell something or offer, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all got to make money, but you have to look at this in a very personal way and figure out how it's going to work for you and your family.
Well, I'm so very impressed with the two of you, and I appreciate you. Michelle, it was so awesome meeting you. And I'm like, I got to get you up. I talked to you, for like 5 minutes. I'm like, you need to be on my podcast. So this has been very educational for myself, and I'm sure for the listeners. So thank you all. We are going to move to the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes you two badasses. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. I see a couple over Michelle's head there, but what's a book that's made a huge difference in your life? Either one of you.
One of the biggest books is, and I'm trying to see if I have it here. I mean, I have a whole bunch of it. But the title of the book is called The Art of Passing the Buck. It's by Charles Arthur. And it's a super important, it's really an in-depth read. A lot of people think it's high level, but they break it down on really about generational wealth, how trusts work, how it's not so intimidating, how all this stuff comes from England, and it's not just for the ultra wealthy.
No.
And really, it gives you an insider understanding on how things work, how, hey, your property, how it needs to be in trust, and how at the end of the day, we live in a fee simple society. No one really owns anything. So it really goes into detail about the whole own nothing, control everything concept. But The Art of Passing the Buck is a really good read to understand these concepts.
You said it came from England.
Yes,
Yes.
all the trusts and everything. This comes from, the feudal system and all that stuff from England, 500-600 years ago. Henry VIII, started it, obviously for obvious reasons, because he had so much wealth. And trusts were initially meant to protect the wealth of people that had stuff. But as it transformed over time and came to the United States, it became more commonplace because it's all based off of contract. Right? Our Constitution is a contract.
Yep.
So when you kind of, real estate is all contracts. People in real estate, when they start learning about trust, they really can see the similarities because it's the same concept. But this is how you can protect your assets and grow wealth.
So if you were not brought up with a silver spoon in your mouth and you did not have these conversations around the dinner table, like we didn't, okay?
Yep.
And you are growing wealth and you're working hard and you feel that you almost like have a duty as an American to build wealth because your ancestors risked everything to come to this country. So now you want to have something for the future generations. Read The Art of Passing the Buck.
I love that. It is definitely going in my my nightstand that's getting higher and higher. So, all right, the next letter is A for advice. I'm going to throw this at Michelle. You've given us great advice today in real situations here. So, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, the best piece of advice that I've ever received. Well, I'm going to put a little bit of knowledge into this, and it's something that Stefan actually taught me and we pass on to our clients. Okay. Some heirs do not want tenants, toilets, and trash.
Yes.
Okay. So there's something called underground real estate. There are other investments that can grow and they can receive regular income from and, still generate an income and grow the trust and grow the family wealth. So I would say there are other types of real estate other than above ground. There's something called underground real estate. So learn about that. And you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So you never stop learning. Never stop learning.
Absolutely. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you two to be successful?
I think for me, it's the fact that there are so many people, and I speak to a lot of people that are successful in what they do. They're good in real estate. They're good in their business. They're a doctor, or they have a landscaping business or whatever. Crypto, whatever it is, really good at. And you would think, oh, this person's got a lot of money. They are just horrible. The people have a misconception of wealth in this country. They think that, hey, this person, they have a whole bunch of money, we deserve to take their money. They shouldn't have that. They should. No, they worked hard. Something set them apart. They took risks, right? And they're reaping the benefits of that. And as you go through that whole process, and we've done that personally, you understand that you're good at one thing, but probably not another. And the biggest thing is that people that have lots of money are really bad with money. They're good at making money, but they're really not as efficient with keeping it. And so what happens is over time, even though one generation had money, the next generation doesn't, because
Mm-hmm.
one person was good with money, but the other people weren't, right? And so it's really about, and we talk about this all the time to your clients, it's not just about passing on your valuables, it's about passing on your values, your
Ooh.
ethics, your morals. How do you actually do things? What makes you who you are? Because hopefully you want your kids to be a better version of yourself, right? But I think the biggest thing is just a misconception of wealth in this country and our obsession with making people that, we always, we kind of praise the millionaires and billionaires, but we hate them at the same time, right? Eat the
Right.
rich. But these are people that take risks. And a lot of times the wealth just doesn't pass through because there's just not a lot of education on what needs to be done.
I love that you brought that up, Stefan, because I hear it all the time, that like I was raised, the rich must be deceitful about something. It's just
Mm.
that kind of persona about it. And it really is open to everyone. And Michelle, you've nailed it a couple times as well, where, everyone has access to the same laws that they are passing through Congress and that benefit them. It will benefit us as well. So I do appreciate you stating it that way. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on? Either one of you.
So my goal is to make sure that that we help educate not only our children, but as many people as possible on how to keep more, how to create generational wealth, how to protect themselves and their assets, and also even other people to change the mindset for business owners and not have that hatred, that animosity toward them because like Stefan was saying, they take on the risk. I mean, let's face it, the people in this country, we have the country lottery, right? Whether you were born here, or you became a citizen here, we won the lottery. So we do have kind of
The
um,
American dream.
the American dream. We do
Yes.
kind of have an obligation to make it big and to pass on. Aspiration for me is to create generational wealth and to stop the lack of financial education because they don't teach it in school. Because if they did, it wouldn't benefit the government as much. Also, business owners, what do they provide? They provide employees. What do the employees pay? They pay taxes, right? They're partners with the government. They're offering more help to the government. And I also want to just say this. I do believe taxes are important, some taxes, because do need to pay, our teachers, our policemen, our infrastructure, things of that nature. But we don't have an obligation to pay more than what we live on, more than, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 times more than everybody else when we are taking on all that risk.
Absolutely. I
So
think
education is my aspiration.
I love you even more, Michelle. I love you for saying that. Thank you. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
I would say our biggest system is just our team. I mean,
Good.
I've gone through a lot of training and, like I said, certified estate trust tax specialist, and you never stop learning. But just having that team is just so important because, like Michelle said, you never stop learning. I learn stuff every single week. A lot of people say, "Oh, Steph, you must." I'm like, listen, I tell my students all the time, I I learn just as much from you guys sometimes because you're dealing your boots on the ground. But having our team, it's made such a huge difference, and it's given us the ability to be able to help our clients in so many different ways. I mean, we can actually go back 2, 3 years and get people back money from the government that they overpaid.
Hmm.
So there's
There
just a
are
lot of
tons of
different
out
things out
there.
there that people just don't know about, and it's thanks to kind of the team that we have, and and put together. So I would say that's our biggest asset, if you will,
That is.
in our business.
There's a saying, the best form of learning is by teaching.
Mm.
So I love that one. All right. I could talk to you two all day. You have such great information, especially for my listeners. But the final S in badass is success. What does success mean to Stefan and Michelle?
Let me take that one.
Success to me means more valuable time with my family.
Valuable time.
Valuable time, right? Because none of us knows what's going to happen tomorrow. We might have a good idea, but nothing is certain. And time is the biggest aspect in people's financial picture that they just completely don't regard. They just think about rate of return or return on investment. If you don't have the time, who cares about that? No one that's on their deathbed is like, oh, I wish I could buy another rental property or another. They want more time with their family, with the things that they like to do, with the people that they love. And so time is so important. And that's really my biggest motivation or drive in all of this, is showing people how to get things done, get it done efficiently, so you don't have to stress. You can start spending more time with the people that you love, doing the things that you want to do while you have it, because nothing is promised to us.
Well, that is a great way to wrap this up. And I'm so very impressed with the two of you. And I can't wait to have some drinks, especially with Michelle, but we'll bring you along, Stefan, as well.
Yeah,
So we need to hang out. But before we go, one more time, how can the listeners find you?
Yeah, the best way, we're on LinkedIn. You can search Stefan Belhomme, Michelle Nice. We're on all socials. Under socials, it's the Tax and Estate Academy. So you can Google the Tax and Estate Academy. All of our socials, TikTok, Instagram. I'm a millennial, so But our YouTube page is going to have a lot of the good content and trainings. We have master classes on there. They're pretty long, a lot of them, but it'll really give you a deep dive into kind of understanding how some of this stuff works. And you don't have to pay an attorney, $500, $1,000 an hour to learn this stuff. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that holds people back is the intimidation and complexity. And that's really what we strive to do, is break that down.
You can also go to our website. You want
Yeah,
to share the website?
and our website is prudentwealthstrategies.com. So you can go to our website as well, and want to book an appointment, and you can do that as well.
Our emails as well.
Yeah, our
You
email.
can reach out, Michelle at Prudent Wealth Strategies with an S.com, or Stefan, STEF as in Frank, AN, at prudentwealthstrategies.com.
Yep.
Well, thank you both so very much for being on the show today. You've opened my mind up to more possibilities. So thank you both for being here today.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
for
Thank
having
you. It
us.
was an honor.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josey by visiting therealjenjosey.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.